What's in a name?
This is her home.
Since 1979, Josina Lott has been the name of a residential community for special adults at 120 Holland Sylvania Road.
To see Michael mature here under the care of this staff was very special.
And in that time, the name Josina Lott Residential and Community Services has come to mean living life to its fullest.
They love going on outings and getting out in the community and experiencing different activities.
They get to do more things than I do.
Enriching the lives of those that we serve.
But who is Josina Lott? And what is this special organization, 40 years strong, all about? The answer begins in the story of Bill Flesher, his brother Dick, and his parents, Fred and Judy. Billy and Dickie Flesher were both born in the 1940s, and both were born with developmental disabilities. It was a time when care was limited to state-run institutions. The Flesher boys began their early childhood schooling at a convent in Canada, but Dickie became physically ill and had to return home. Bill became too unsettled to continue without his younger brother, and he also returned to his parents' home. Meanwhile, a teacher named Josina Lott had settled in Toledo. She was disturbed that public schools turned away children with disabilities, so she started a day school in her apartment. Her endeavors were groundbreaking, and by 1945, the Lott Day School was educating this special but underserved population in a building on Hefner Street in East Toledo. She also founded a sheltered workshop to employ students she had educated who could not otherwise find work. Her day school eventually became Lark Lane School, and her workshop, Lott Industries. Young Bill Flesher was educated at Lott Day School. Fast forward to 1972. The Flesher brothers are living at home with Fred and Judy, who are becoming concerned about their son's continuing care once they are no longer able to care for them. So Fred began meeting with friends and colleagues to discuss options for serving the needs of adults with developmental disabilities.
First of all, he gave me a call and said, "Can we have lunch?" And he also invited Bill Barkin.
I was Fred and his company's attorney.
So the three of us had lunch at the Commodore.
That was a hotel, by the way, back then.
And he said, "Boys, I got a project." He said, "Judy and I are concerned what's going to happen to our two boys when we are gone. We need a place for them to go and others like them."
There were a lot of state facilities, but that is not what Fred was looking for.
And he said, "I've got an idea."
"Bill, we're going to begin talking about forming a new organization. We need a lawyer. You're it."
"I've got an idea what it might cost, and I'm going to Columbus and meet with some of the authorities there and see if I can't get some help. When I come back, we'll have lunch again and we'll talk about it."
And that was the driving force.
And I had no concept of really the extent of what he was talking about.
He was looking for a residential facility for developmentally disabled individuals.
Fred owned Colonial Builders. Many of his structures and developments still stand. He was a man with a manner of persuasion.
The word no was unknown in Fred's vocabulary.
He feared no challenges.
Well, the initial challenge, of course, was funding. He had determined that this facility of just the two buildings now and the land would cost $1.2 million. Well, that was a fair amount of money. Where's it going to come from? Well, when Fred came back from Columbus, he said, "Well, boys, I've got 600. He's got half." And I thought, wow, that sounds like Fred. And he looked at Bill and he called him Billy, Bill Barkin. He said, "Billy, you take care of the legal work." He was a lawyer. And he looked at me and he said, "Jack, you raise the 600. And I said, "Thank you, Fred." I mean, out of the blue, 600?
He was a very charming but very forceful person.
So we formed a small committee, many of whom had family members who were disadvantaged. They had a more than just a casual interest in that project. It was emotional for them, of course. And then we expanded the circle and eventually raised the $600,000.
The expanded circle Jack speaks of included a woman named Zepha Manahan. More on her in a minute. On December 20th, 1973, the Josina Lott Foundation Articles of Incorporation were formally drafted. Josina Lott died in 1972, but the name of Billy's childhood educator would live on in Fred and Judy's quest to build a facility that would serve adults with developmental disabilities. Ground was broken on the Holland-Sylvania land in 1977, and the first residents moved to their new home in September 1979. They came from the Northwest Ohio Developmental Center. NODC was taking in former residents of the state hospital across the street on South Detroit Avenue, which was being phased out of service. A recent graduate of the University of Toledo, named Michael Malone, had just begun his career at NODC.
It was a state developmental center. At that time in the mid-70s, state institutions that were found to be very, very bad were downsizing and taking people out and putting them in smaller facilities.
Michael joined the staff at the under-construction Josina Lott Foundation. He is now the executive director of Josina Lott Residential and Community Services and has been here literally since the beginning, since before opening day.
This was on the cutting edge. There was nothing like this anywhere.
It's now 2019. Fred and Judy Flesher have passed, so has Dick. But their legacy of serving adults with developmental disabilities endures. Their residential community thrives. The 2-building campus is now a 4-building campus. Bill still lives here, and there's now an adult day hab program operating at River Crossings in Sylvania.
We improve on the lives of the individuals that we serve. We help them with their daily living skills and with working skills and recreational activities and having fun, and also their daily living skills.
Everyone has a goal. We all know everyone's goal and what they want to accomplish.
We thrive both as a community and within the community.
We try to give them as many opportunities. I think the key word is opportunities. What do you want to do? Here's all these community activities you can do. Here's all these trips we can take. Which one of those look interesting to you? Do you want to learn about money, or would you rather learn how to read? Those type of things. It all has to be person-centered, and we have to look at the person and say, what do you want to do?
We thrive with our volunteers.
Treating people with compassion. I think the zoo teens typically enjoy projects that allow them to serve and be compassionate to others.
I was a zoo teen when I was 13, and then in that program I was exposed to people with disabilities, and Josina Lott was actually the first place that I got an experience with people with intellectual disabilities.
And we thrive as volunteers ourselves.
I feel very strongly about being a part of the community, so the individuals are out in the community as much as possible. Their social schedule is much busier than mine, and we also give back.
We thrive with activities.
It's a very open, welcome place for people with special needs who, where they can just go and be themselves.
It's a beautiful setting. It's not too big and it's not too small. It's close to the city, so they can go on outings, or they can go to the movies, or they can go to the theater, they can go out to the gardens, they could do something from here.
Mostly, we thrive as home.
The family is comfortable in knowing that Mark is very well cared for, and he likes it here. He really does. This is his home.
Home to adults with developmental disabilities.
We would take him home almost every weekend, but when it would get a certain time, he'd say, I want to go home. I want to go home. So we knew this was his home.
So again, what's in a name?
unconditional love,
peace of mind.
Good staff can carry me.
Let's go back to the beginning of this story. Remember the name Zepha Manahan? She was one of the original group that launched the Lott Foundation, along with Jack Rogers and Bill Barkin. She too had a son with developmental disabilities, and she took a keen interest in the groundbreaking work being carried out by Fred and Judy Flesher. She died in 1983, and her son preceded her. Although she left no surviving family behind, she did leave behind a trust fund and a name.
A lot of the things that we look around and see today are because of that fund and make us the strong organization that we are, and it was because of her. So what's the best thing to do? Let's recognize her. Let's give the organization that name.
Yes, Josina Lott Residential and Community Services is becoming Manahan.
And the biggest thing was because after 40 years, people still think we're Lott Industries, and we spend our 2-minute elevator speech telling people who we aren't. And we need to tell people how wonderful we are and what we do. That's the main point that I want to make sure that people understand. Why a name change after 40 years? This is why.
Lott will live on in another venerable institution bearing her name. The name Manahan will now endure in this one.
Well, I think the one thing that was so profound for my husband and I when her mother was ill, and we took her up to visit. And the reassurance that Jane herself, in her own words, explained to her mother, she loves it here. She loves the family, she loves the staff, she just loves everybody here. And you could just see it in Jane's face, that it was the right choice for her to be here. Excuse me.
I'm sorry about that.
I'm okay.
Yeah,
And I can tell that Helen was just absolutely relieved to know she made the right choice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could just see it. And yeah, and then she passed within 24 hours.
Yeah.
So it was just like she was at peace with it.
Yeah.
She wanted to know.